your body needs energy, and that energy in your food is stored as organic compound, which is broken down to give us ATP, the energy currency of our cell. So we said there are two conditions under which the organic compounds can be broken down, which is the aerobic, where there is the presence of oxygen, and the anaerobic, where there is no oxygen required. So we have our organic compound, for instance our glucose, which undergoes glycolysis, the breakdown of glucose. It gives us pyruvate in both aerobic and the anaerobic condition. But under the aerobic condition, we get CO2, H2, and energy currency, which is the adenosine triphosphate, the ATP. But under the anaerobic condition, we only get lactic acid or alcohol fermentation, and that depends on the kind of cell. If it is an animal cell, we get the lactic acid. If it's a plant cell, we get alcohol. If you want to remember alcohol, like your drinks, it's gotten from all these beverages, plants, alcohol. So it's for the plant. While for the lactic acid is in animal cell. So your organic compound is broken down to give us ATP. So our major aim is how ATP is being produced in your body at adenosine triphosphate. So we were looking at glycolysis, and we said glycolysis is the breakdown of glucose, a 6-carbon molecule, into pyruvic acid, 2 molecules of pyruvic acid rather, a 3-carbon molecule. So we said glycolysis. We are breaking down 6. Let me represent my carbon as this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We are breaking it down to 3 carbon molecules, 2 molecules of it, 2 of it. Say 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So this pyruvate. So that's what's happening. So under here we have enzymes that helps to break the molecule. So what happens in this reaction? Before we even go into the anaerobic or the aerobic condition, where pyruvate now goes into other kind of pathway. So the first thing that happens in glycolysis is the phosphorylation of glucose. I will explain what that means anyway. So we have the number one, we have phosphorylation of glucose. Phosphorylation of glucose. From the name phosphorylation, we are phosphorylating, we are adding phosphate group to our glucose. Why are we adding phosphate group to our glucose? It's so that our glucose will not leave our cell. I said glucose occurs in glycolysis occurs in the cytosol, and glucose has already entered the cell, so there's a high probability that it can also leave while it is breaking down. And imagine if glucose leaves the cell while it is being broken down, then ATP will not be formed. And if ATP is not formed, your body will not have energy. If your body does not have energy, you will not be watching it right now. Maybe you'll be in your sleep, but you have energy. That's why. So the first thing that needs to happen is to keep the glucose in the cell. And how does your body do that? It adds phosphate group to a glucose. So we have 2 phosphate group adding it to the glucose. So where does this phosphate group come from? Don't forget I said glycolysis is a borrow payback reaction. So we have our, let's assume we have our glucose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we add 2 phosphate group. We have 2 phosphate group to our glucose. This is what is happening. So where did we get this phosphate group from? We are getting it from these 2 phosphate group. We are getting it from ATP. We are getting our phosphate group from ATP. Don't forget we are trying to activate or to prepare glucose. So these are glucose. So we phosphorylate glucose in the first step reaction. So if you are asked what is the first step in glycolysis, it's called the phosphorylation of glucose. We are preparing glucose. Why? So that glucose will not leave the cytosol or the membrane. So we phosphorylate glucose, and it is gotten from this reaction. So ATP. So we need 1 phosphate and another phosphate. So how many ATP are we going to be using? 2 ATP. So if we remove 1 phosphate group from ATP, don't forget this was adenosine triphosphate. If we remove all this phosphate group and we bring it down here, we are going to get back, or we are going to get ADP, adenosine diphosphate. So we'll be losing the phosphate group from the ATP, and this is where I said we are borrowing. Don't forget I said glycolysis is a borrow payback reaction. So here we have borrowed how many? We have borrowed 2 ATP. We borrowed 2 ATP. So that's what is happening in this first reaction. So what happens next is that there is a kind of cleavage. There is a cleavage that occurs. The glucose is being broken down, or is being cleaved into 3 carbon molecules. So by an enzyme helps us to cleave glucose, this phosphate glucose. This compound is called an hexose phosphate. So we split this into a 3 carbon molecules. We have 1, 2, 3. Don't forget your phosphate group. 1, 2, 3. Now, so this is what is happening. Now, before we go into that, so we can be able to answer some questions. Now, this step that we got here, it was actually from glucose. We added phosphate group, but before we added, it didn't just happen bam, like we just added 2 phosphate groups. It was little by little. The first thing that happened was that glucose itself was first phosphorylated, and we get glucose 6 phosphate. So if you are being asked, the first product in glycolysis is called what? Glucose 6 phosphate. So what happened next was now that an isomerization reaction now took place, which changed glucose, or which isomerized glucose to fructose, and now added another phosphate group. That's how we are having 2 phosphate group here. I will spare you the name now, but if you want to know, it is called 1,6-bisphosphate. 1,6-glucose-bisphosphate, because we are having 2 phosphate group attached to it. So that's what happened here. So the next thing is that this fructose 1,6 fructose bisphosphate is now being cleaved, or being broken down into 2. Don't forget our final result is 2 molecules of pyruvate. And here we have already borrowed ATP to excuse me, to activate our glucose. So the next thing that happens here is this. It now undergoes another reaction. Now we want to now produce ATP now. This stage is called the borrowed stage. We can call it the energy consuming stage. It has consumed a lot of energy. Then here now, what happens next is that we now phosphorylate this again. Now I want you to pay attention here now. We are phosphorylating this again. Let me draw the product so you see what we are seeing. We phosphorylate these things like this. Let's assume, okay, for better view, let's assume this is just 1. So let's assume this is 1. We are bringing it together. So we are bringing it together. So we are having 2 of this. 2 of this. 1, 2, 2. So this is what we have, right? We want to now phosphorylate it again, so that we can have another ATP. Our product will now be something like this. Our product will be something like this. Don't look like that. Something like this. Now, this phosphate group that we got here, it's not coming from an ATP like this one here. No, we are getting it from another kind of reaction, hydrolysis reaction. It's not coming from We are not removing any phosphate group from an ATP. We are not borrowing. We have all the whole energy that we need to borrow. We have borrowed it just to activate glucose. Here it's coming from an electron carrier. They call it NADH or NAD. NAD plus. Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. This NAD carries electron. It carries electron, whereby it now goes under aerobic condition. Now it goes into another pathway, the electron transport chain, and produce much more ATP. So inside this NAD now we also have ATP inside, but it's just at the beginning, we're just leaving it at NAD. So what happens is that this NAD, you know, we take an hydrogen from here, we transfer it here, then we produce what? NADH. So follow the step. The first thing we did is that we phosphorylated glucose to get 1,6-base fructose phosphate. We will now cleaved fructose to get 3 carbon molecules, 2 of them. They were now phosphorylating again. We are adding a phosphate group to it. So this molecule is called glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So that's what we get it then to this. Now the next thing we now want to do, now we now want to produce real ATP. What happens next is, so I am to clean this. I hope you have gotten that. So from here, so we are continuing from here. Our 1,3 base phosphoglycerate. Just leave the name for now and just follow. Our base phosphoglycerate now transfer those phosphate group will now be transferred to ADP now. 2 molecules of ADP. So don't forget don't forget we are having 2 of this. We are having 2 of this from here. I'm just representing it as 1. Then these 2 electrons, 2 phosphate group will be transferred here. So we are going to be having, first of all, we transferred here. Don't forget we are having 2. So we'll be needing 4. Sorry, we'll be needing 4. Why? Because this is 1. And we're having 2 of it. We'll be having 1, 2, then the second one, 3, 4. So let me make it much more so that we can get 4 here. Let me separate it. So we have 1, 2, 3, P, P, and we have 1, 2, 3, P, P. So anytime we want to remove a phosphate group, we need to add it to ADP. So we are going to be needing how many ADP? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 ADP. So we are going to be needing 4 ADP to get 4 ATP. At this stage here now, when we remove the phosphate group, we are going to be having a pyruvate, and we'll come to the end of the glycolysis. Pyruvate. So you can see that we have produced 4 ATP in we have produced 4 ATP, but we have borrowed 2 ATP, don't forget, from our phosphorylation of glucose. So our net ATP for one molecule of glucose that has undergone oxidation will produce what? 4 ATP minus 2 ATP to give what? 2 ATP. So we produce 2 ATP at glycolysis, and here, okay, our NAD is 2, don't forget 1, 2, not just 1, 2, NADH. So we have 2 ATP produced in glycolysis. So if you ask how many ATP do you produce in glycolysis, is what? 2 ATP. So I'll just go over the reaction just to summarize what we did under glycolysis, and we call it for glycolysis. before we move into fermentation and the Krebs cycle. What happens next? So we said the 6 carbon molecule, which is called glucose. Let me start from this side so we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Glucose is being phosphorylated. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We phosphorylate it. Then we now get back we clip this. The next stage is to clip this. Now 2 of it. We have 2 of this. Don't forget here at this initial stage we lost. We are borrowing ATP. So from 2 ATP we lost 2 ATP. We add 2 ATP. So here we have a subtraction of 2 ATP. Then next thing was that we now transferred these 2 phosphate group. We also phosphorylated it further, sorry, to get a reaction. We added another phosphate group to this. Sorry for that. We added another phosphate group. Then we're having something like this. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And at this stage, this is where we formed an electron carrier molecule. Don't forget NADH 2 NAD plus to give us 2 NADH. Then these 2, we now transferred these 4 phosphate group to 4 ADP. We transferred it to 4 ADP. That was what we got our 4 ATP from. Don't forget 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 ATP. So we need 4 adenosine diphosphate to add to 1 phosphate go to 1 go to 1 will go to 1, the 4th one go to the 4th, then we have 4 ATP. Then we'll be producing our pyruvate, 2 molecules of pyruvate. So you can see the overall reaction from glucose to pyruvate. First thing that happens is the phosphorylation of glucose to get 1,6-bis hexophosphate. Then we will cleave our phosphorylated glucose to get 2 molecules of glyceride di3-phosphate. So you don't forget G3P, you can abbreviate it as that, glyceride di3-phosphate. Then after cleaving, we add another phosphate group which will help us produce NADH. This NADH, we are going to come back to the importance of this. It's very important. I said this NADH is going to go into, in it, like as we are seeing, like it has ATP in it, but we cannot use it like that. It has to also be broken down. Then it's going to go into another reaction, another pathway. It's called the electron transport chain. all the ATP, all the NADH we are going to produce, both in our glycolysis, in our Krebs cycle, is going to go into electron transport chain, whereby we extract the ATP from it. And just for the future, 1 mole of NADH produces 3 ATP. So you can see 3 ATP from just NADH. We also have other electron carrier. We have FADH, but we'll be looking at that in the Krebs cycle. So till we get our pyruvate or pyruvic acid, which is 2 moles of that, and at the end we get what, 4. So our net reaction is what? Or net ATP. Net ATP is equals to what? 4 minus 2 ATP. So that's that. Let's write our reaction for our glucose. So what we needed was, we need 1 mole of glucose. We needed 1 mole of glucose plus 2 ATP. Don't forget. Plus 2 ATP plus what again? We needed 2 NAD. That's second phosphorylation. Then what did we get in our reaction? We got, from 1 mole of glucose, we got 2 moles of pyruvate. Okay, we also needed 4 ADP here. Don't forget our 4 ADP as our reactant. And we got, when we remove phosphate group from here, we add what? 2 ADP. Yeah. Then our NADH, we add what? And for the 4 ADP, we got 4 ATP. Ah. So look at this. So if you cancel out the reactant and the product, what are we going to get as our final reaction? So we get, we have 4, we borrow 2, 4 minus 2. This one we cancel out. This one we cancel out. So at the end of the reaction, we're going to be having something like this. So at the end of the reaction, so we can see that. Let me write it at the top here. We're going to be having 1 mole of glucose plus 2 ADP plus 2 NAD plus to give us 2 pyruvate plus 2 ATP, 2 moles of ATP, and plus 2 moles of NADH. So we have gotten our pyruvate and our ATP, 2 moles of ATP from glucose. So you can see just very small. That's why we also need to now go into other reactions to extract much more ATP. So we've come to the end of glycolysis, the breakdown of glucose from our glucose to give us pyruvate acid. Thank you very much.